criticism. I'm your guest host, Mason. Spencer's out on vacation this week, but don't worry, we have a star-studded cast for you. I have Silver Pro Michael Hinderocker. I
What's
got
up, guys?
Bronze Pro Matt Kling.
Hey, how's it going?
And we have Pro Tour Champion Wyatt Darby. Wyatt, thank you for joining us
What's
this
up?
week.
Yeah, no, happy to be here. It's awesome.
Yeah. So this week we're going to talk about Modern. We're going to go over that with GP Vegas coming up pretty soon. I guess it technically is this weekend. Time's flying by. Oh my goodness. And then we're going to do a little interview with Wyatt here. But you can count on this show to be great, just like you can the great, great deals you can find at Oasis Games. Go to oasisgames.com. Proud sponsor of the show. Thanks, Michael. I'm glad you liked that one. You can use code Would That Be Good to get 4% off at checkout. And if it's your first time ordering, you can use the code CCMTG and get 15% off your first order. That's how I got my Modern deck the first time. It was great. It's paid dividends. I loved it.
What did you buy? Most importantly,
Titan Shift.
I mean, is it really great?
Michael, words have meaning and they can hurt. I don't know. I got close to qualifying with a PT, man. I had like 35,000 top decks. That's how it always is though with Titan Shift. It doesn't matter. But what does matter is the other awesome deals you can get at the Mana Base. The Mana Base is our other sponsor. They like to support up and coming content creators like Nikachu, the Merfolk Master, things like that. And you can also get sealed product from them, something that our other sponsor, Oasis Games, does not do. So you can head over there and check them out. It's pretty awesome. I'm so sorry about that. I got something stuck in my throat there for a second. But we're going to move on to hashtag always improving. Hashtag always improving is the point of the show. If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And Michael, how did you always improve this week?
Well, I don't actually know that I improved this week. I played a lot of Modern and, mostly did what I do every time I play a lot of Modern, which is do okay with everything and find myself less and less sure of what I'd actually like to play. So that was mostly my week. It was a good time, but not especially productive.
Gotta get reps in. Gotta learn the Modern
With
format.
11 different decks. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that. The Modern format can be anything. You could be playing anything. That's really awesome. Matt, what did you do to get better this week?
Probably just being a little more open-minded as for what to play for the RPTQ mostly. I thought that Esper, Mono Green, and Mono Red would be the best 3 decks to play, and a lot of the RPTQ results have kind of confirmed that, but I think I'm still kind of branching out into other things that I think might be good. I've been testing a little bit of Green-White lately, and that's been, promising.
There's like the Wesco list type thing?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Wyatt, what did you do?
Kind of broaden the modern horizons a little bit. I really clutched onto my Jaces in my sleeves until just this past week I finally got them out of there and finally started playing humans instead, and it did a lot of good for me online. Really, Jace was a card that I never had a chance to play before it got banned, so I finally got that all out of my system.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, Teferi's the better Jace anyways, right? So you should just be doing that.
Yeah, begrudgingly admit that, yeah, that seems the case.
Yeah, I'm curious how that's going to play out over the long term. I don't know. That's something that we're going to get into later for sure, but that's a very interesting thing that's happened in Mono recently. Well, for my always improving, I had the RPTQ. So just getting to, I don't know how to say this exactly, but, playing the RPTQ and, having, people locally and testing and everything leading up to that, I thought it was, a really good process. And just keeping ourselves, open to new ideas, and just also I think we did a good job of when we had to communicate, we communicated efficiently without saying too much. I think we had a really good job of also just trusting our teammates, where it's I don't need to say anything or butt in when other teams were doing that, which was giving away information for us, which was nice to have all that kind of play out. So that was always improving. We didn't top 8 or anything like that. My friend Teresa did from Proven Combatants, which you can hear later in the week, but nothing too exciting beyond that. Just top 32. Boo-hoo.
What did you guys end up playing?
We ended up playing Bant Sun, Mono Black, and Red Black. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Did you happen to notice what did well at your RPTQ?
So I left after Teresa lost in top 8, but the top 8 when I was there was a lot of Mono Red, a lot of Green, a lot of Blue-White or Esper, and then there was a bunch of Green-White, the rounds, so it was 7 rounds, we had 89 teams. Around 5 and 6, I saw a lot of Green-White at the top tables and all kind of lost out. So I would say that it easily could have been a bunch of Green-White decks instead of the green, black Stompy decks in the top 8. They just didn't break out that way. But basically,
Sure.
every team had a Teferi deck. Every team had a Hazoret deck, which is just, I think, the obvious 0.
Yeah, it makes sense though. Like the green-white deck doesn't necessarily compete for a lot of the cards that the Teferi deck wants, despite sharing a color sometimes. So, especially if you prefer the blue-black style of deck, you really have a chance to look at white elsewhere if you're into that.
Yeah, there was a surprising amount of blue-black mid-range, which was interesting. Like, there were teams that had...
So, I get the appeal of that. I mean, I get the appeal. I don't know how good blue-black mid actually is, but I get the appeal in that, like, ideally, you're playing just a deck with less polarized matchups.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. I played against it a lot. I didn't play against any red in all 7 rounds that we played, which was really weird. But
And which deck were you playing, Mason?
I was mono black in seat C. So
I was gonna say, and more importantly, what seat were you sitting in, so we can try to avoid the red player in seat C now. Got it.
There was a lot of red players in seat 1, but I mean, like, that's just, I think, how it broke for our team. Like, obviously, there's nothing to gain there. It's all random. Don't worry about thinking about that.
This isn't like we're not really gonna have this conversation.
I know, but you don't know. Someone at home might not understand that Matt's just trolling. So, wanted to get that out of the way there. But normally we'd move on to our Patreon question of the week. But this week, since Wyatt's on, we're going to be doing a big interview with him after the power rankings and everything. So your Patreon questions will be answered later by Wyatt Darby. Like, will Wyatt get a Glorybringer tattoo on his back? We're going to have to find out later in the show. But right now we're going to move on to card of the week. Michael, do you want to say what the card of the week is?
Yeah, so the card of the week is Quark Clan Ironworks, which has made kind of a big splash in Modern lately.
Got second at the Invitational in the hands of Zach Elsick. Matt?
Yeah, who apparently had played like no match.
Yeah, I saw that he tweeted he kept looking at Matt Nass's article between rounds, just like keep himself refreshed on it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You got to remember your sideboard plan somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like
basically exactly what I've done the last couple times I've played KCI as well. So.
Yeah, if you haven't checked out that article and you're wanting to play KCI, you definitely should. Matt did a really good job with that. But Matt Kling, why is this the card of the week?
It's the card of the week because it is not only a powerful card in Modern, but kind of just came out of nowhere and is honestly the only reason that this deck works. So.
All right, Darby, I know you're new to the show, so I'm going to give you the softball. What decks does KCIC play in?
Well, it is kind of the namesake in a combo deck, built around that, and Scrap Trawler makes insurmountable amounts of mana and card advantage if it's left uninteracted with. And from what I found, is actually surprisingly resilient too. KCI, if you're not familiar, you can kind of get got by timings, mana abilities, and all that, and it's a really skill-intensive deck to play with and against. So, hopefully it's not a new eggs situation, but it seems like a really powerful choice for the next few weeks.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Now, is that a deck that you have tried messing around with, Matt? Michael has been on the show saying that he probably would play that in Vegas a couple weeks ago. Is that one that you started play testing with after you de-sleeved your Jaces and saw the light? But
I tried. I tried for about 3 matches, and my head hurts. I just need to attack with some creatures, and it's just. I think it's excellent, but it's just a little bit outside of the range of anything I've ever really tried. My combo decks have been Splinter Twin, which was always really debatable if that was really a combo deck or a tempo deck. So yeah, I think it's great, but not something that I think I have the time to really master.
Awesome. Well, I love the KCI deck. I'm not very good with it, but it's a blast to play. It's a puzzle every time. But that's going to be card of the week. We are actually going to announce the winner of card of the week in the Constructed Critics group. I forgot to take care of that before the show, but they're going to win KCI, Goblin Chain Warrior, Logic Knot, and one of the Teferi. So it's going to be a pretty awesome giveaway there.
Yeah,
they're gonna get
that's a spicy set. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one to win. So that's what you get for being a patron, I believe, of $3 or more. You get the chance to win
Who's
the card.
choosing these?
So when Spencer, whoever's the host of the show, chooses. So I wonder if you can see who I picked Teferi and Casey.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm not the one in charge of the budget. I'm just in charge of making sure the show goes up. Sometimes I guest host, but yeah, when Spencer's gone, I pick. So I make sure to pick ones I think people are gonna want. Now this one is debatable, but I thought it was the card
next week when Mox Pearl is card of the week.
Yeah.
The time Mox Opal was one of the cards of the week, which is me as well. Moving on to our power rankings. It was just a Mox Opal though. So our power rankings this week, we're going just off the MTG Goldfish top 5. I didn't want to do the Invitational, even though it's like a very high skill tournament. It is a mixed format. and I didn't want to go through and break down like who did well and with on what deck. And then with the Classic, I was like, we might as well just use Magic Online and talk about that. They're going to mirror each other pretty well. So coming in at number 5 is Affinity. This is a deck that I think we talked about last week where we also did the Modern Power Rankings. Matt, have you got to play any since last week? Have you... Oh, we did it in the Deck Doctor last week. That's what it was. Matt, have you got to play any since then in testing for Vegas with the deck? Did you get to play with Karns, anything like that?
No, I have not played with Affinity since then. I did play against it, and the Karns did seem very good. I was actually very impressed by the Karns, and they seem to have, like, not exactly become stock, but they are probably about 50% of the time.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's because, like, Karn is actually good for the deck, or people are wanting to try Karn, and Affinity is just so solid that, like, you can have your couple flex slots be Karn because you just won't draw it all the time, even if it is bad?
I think it's probably more of that, honestly. I don't know for sure that it's like better than what we were doing before, but I think that it is a cool card and people really want to try it, and you're just very unlikely to get punished by playing a couple Karns in your Affinity deck, even if it's bad.
Wyatt, is this a deck? I see you nodding your head over there. Have you played Affinity in the past, or you just agreeing with what's being said?
Yeah, it is one of those where I see Affinity more than a lot of other deck lists have some kind of suspicious choices do very well. I remember someone top 8 with a Collected Company as like a 1 or 2 of in their main deck at a Grand Prix before, which is a spicy meatball.
It was a one-of.
Yeah. And personally, I think
that
card
was a Japanese GP, right?
Yeah, I think it was. And I mean, Card does seem great. He does give you something to do in games you might get Stony silenced, or just, is kind of another, difficult value engine for a lot of the fair decks to fight. So I see a lot of potential. Personally, I wonder if it might be better than Tezzeret, but I haven't played it a ton with either, so that's kind of up in the air.
Gotcha. Michael, do you think that maybe everything we're saying plus the Rise of Jeskai is helping with Affinity and Karn being in there? Because it does seem like a card you would want against Jeskai, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a card you want against Jeskai. I question how Affinity really lines up right now. Like, if I'm looking at decks I'm expecting to play against, I expect to be, like, a slight favorite against humans, maybe a slight favorite against Mono Green Tron, a pretty big dog to Jeskai, Mardu. You have some pretty bad matchups to go along with a lot of, like, sort of favorable ones. I certainly think Karn it's powerful. Like, every time I've played against it out of the shell, it's made a bunch of 4/4s or 5/5s. And I think Damping Sphere is like a low-key, pretty nice pickup for Affinity as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was about to bring that up. The sideboard that we have on screen here, I can't actually read the name of the list because it's quite small for me, but they're playing 2 Dampening Spheres. This is a card that people expect to see a lot of play in Modern, and it does seem like this is a deck that really capitalizes on, I'm just going to trip you up a little bit and punish you on the 1 or 2 turns you might have stumbled compared to what you've done before. Is this a card that you guys might be looking at to see more play in other decks? Has it not made the splash you thought it would before? I'm going to throw that one to you there first, Kling.
I mean, I think that, if anything, it's probably being overplayed. I think there are a lot of decks that are playing it that aren't that interested in this kind of effect. I think any deck that's playing, like, white mostly doesn't need this card, because you usually have better sideboard options. If you're playing, Affinity, though, it makes sense to play this because it doesn't cost any colored mana, and your deck is generally fast enough that the effects of Damping Sphere are going to be, pretty important.
One last thing about this deck, and we're gonna move on from Affinity. The one we have on screen is playing 4 Etched Champions in the sideboard. Wyatt, what do you think about that? Just 4 of this all-star card that you normally see some of in the main. Do you think that's a concession to Karn? What do you think's going on there?
I think it's kind of admitting that Modern is maybe a bit of a Wild West format. I see that they're playing 4 Master of Ethereum instead, and that's probably the choice you want to have if you just want to kill your opponent if they're not interacting with you. So I think that's more of like a read on the metagame more than anything. And the fact that they do have access to all 8 of them in the 75, I think gives a pretty nice, flexibility and ability to adapt. Because normally, at least in my experience with Affinity, I haven't quite seen the full 8-pack of the 3 drops at the top of the curve. So that's definitely an interesting choice.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that before. Well,
yeah, this is what Karsten was recommending in his last article.
Oh, okay. I haven't
Like
read that one
this specific setup, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Well, it's good to see it did well. Let's move on to one of my favorite decks in Modern, and I know one that Matt Kling loves, Black-Red Hollow One. Matt, what's the appeal of playing Hollow One in Modern right now? I mean, it's just a deck where everything's so random. How am I supposed to make a game plan?
Well, so it is random, but not as random as it seems, right? Everything that you're doing that generates, random value is going to be more valuable for you than for your opponents most of the time. And honestly, you would just be surprised at how many games you can win with just Flame Wake Phoenix Beatdown. The card is really powerful on a low-key way.
So Matt, have you got to play any with the Lingering Souls package? I see Owen Turnwell consistently playing that. Is that something you've gotten to mess around with? I don't see it always with the 5.0. It doesn't look like it's been adopted like it was the first week it popped out when Siggy and them also played it.
So I haven't tried this yet. I've done some, just bouncing it around in my head. It doesn't seem great to me, honestly. Like, it's going to make a lot of your already good matchups slightly better, but it doesn't do anything for any of my bad matchups.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really sure why I'm interested in this. Affinity is probably the one exception.
Okay.
Where it's pretty good against them and that matchup's not great.
Awesome. Micheal, I know you've played some Hollow One before. What do you think about this deck going into GP Vegas?
I like it pretty well. Getting back to whether variance is good or bad, I was just watching Jarvis Yu streaming this, and I believe he described it as weaponized randomness, which I sort of appreciate, or
That's
weaponized
awesome.
variance maybe. Yeah, it was nice. But I think that Matt's point about your cards just work well with the variance. Like it gives you the ability to play a lot of cards that are active if you draw them, but are also good in your graveyard. I think the deck is just like highly synergistic. I think in terms of metagame positioning, the best thing about Hollow One probably is that your best draws will just be basically anything. In positioning, you're pretty good against playing Lightning Bolt, so I think both Mardu and Jeskai are like reasonable to good matchups. Basically, anything trying to like attrition you out of the game just really struggles. It's really, really hard to beat you with a bunch of Lightning Bolts when you're playing. Like the only things that they kill in the deck are Flame Wake Phoenix and Bloodcast.
Gotcha. So we just talked about how like this deck, it can beat almost any deck, right? Because on the first turn you can put like 4 power on the board and have 2 to 4 more in the graveyard waiting for the next turn. Wyatt, when you're going into a GP format like this, is that something that's appealing to you? Like this ability to beat anything?
It is, and I think this deck, the biggest draw, at least personally, is kind of like how I would perceive that it would also have those good Jeskai and Mardu matchups. Like I really do like how it blanks a lot of their removal, or if they do want to use it, you can kill a Bloodghast for a turn. I think that aspect is probably one of the most important ones to make the deck viable. Mostly the reason I want to play it is Burning Inquiry, making my opponent discard all their lands. Like that's really all I want to do with the deck. Just get those free wins. It's only happened once or twice so far, so I should probably get some more leagues in with it.
Yep. I like it.
Just a note on Matt and I were talking about this a little bit this week, but this deck is a lot like Dredge in a lot of ways. It's like mostly a turn 4 deck, rarely a turn 3 deck, but it's a little bit less weak to graveyard hate in exchange for maybe being slightly less consistent in executing its game plan. So what I would say is that you have maybe more hands that don't really do a whole lot, but in return, there isn't really one specific card that someone can play against you that you just can't beat.
Yeah, that would be like the second biggest appeal to me if I was going to play Hollow One. I actually won't be playing Hollow One, unfortunately, at GP Vegas this coming weekend, but the Hollow One deck is like kind of hard to sideboard against, especially if you haven't played against it a lot. And I still feel like, even though it's been around now for like, 4 months, I feel like a lot of modern players still don't have a lot of reps against it because it is a deck, like we talked about, that's pretty random, and a lot of people are adverse to the randomness. So I
think people think it's more like that than it really is.
The randomness or the sideboarding?
I think people get excited about the randomness of it, and although it's a deck that plays a lot of cards that are individually high variance, your deck is designed to mitigate the variance of those high variance cards. I don't think that you feel it nearly as much as it looks like you're going to on paper.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. I've played a lot of Hollowed One, and I think the deck is really good, and I think it does a great job minimalizing variance. The whole deck's built around it. That's just a thing that comes up a lot, though. And what I was saying by that, and maybe I did a poor job explaining myself, is that I think some people are afraid to pick up the deck because of that, and they don't realize that, which leads to less games total being played with the deck than maybe it deserves to have, right? And as such,
Yes.
Yeah, your
I
opponents
totally
have less
agree with
knowledge
that.
with that. Yeah. I love Hollow One. You might have been gone for a little bit when the Hollow One deck first broke on the scene, Michael, but I was here defending it holding strong. Casey and Spencer try to knocking me down, but nope, I'm with the Hollow Boys for life. I love it. I wish I had more experience with it so I could play it at the Grand Prix, but I don't. But either way, I really like this deck. I want to talk about the sideboard real quick though, because this is something that's very interesting to me. Where do y'all feel about cards like Thoughtseize being in the sideboard along with Collective Brutality and all that kind of stuff? Because there is 4 Thoughtseize and Collective Brutality in the sideboard, so they are clearly targeting like combo decks in general. Do you like that kind of approach to Modern, where you have a deck like this that's really powerful and aggressive, and then you just be able to beat the other non-interactive decks? What do you think about that, Matt, as someone who's played the deck a good bit?
Thoughtseize is okay. It's not amazing. I might end up playing some in my sideboard. I think it's a totally fine choice. I would say though that they don't overlap with the Collective Brutalities as much as you would think that they would. I mean, certainly both of them do come in against the combo decks, but there are plenty of matchups where you'll bring in Brutality and not Thoughtseize, and Thoughtseize and not Brutality.
Okay. What do you think about the 4-1 split? Do you think that's like a metagame call, or what do you think is going on there? Because it seems to me like maybe you'd want a few more Brutalities for like the burn kind of matchups.
The burn matchup is actually shockingly good all the time. You don't need Collective Brutality for that matchup. And I would say that Collective Brutality is also surprisingly bad in the deck overall. Like, certainly you want it sometimes, but the fact that it can't let you cast a Hollow One for 0 mana is a big problem.
Okay, that's reasonable.
It's basically a whole turn investment, and you rarely get anything in return for it, other than, just the effects of the card.
Okay. Yeah, the Hollow One deck can be doing more powerful stuff than just that.
Right.
All right, I think that's going to do it for Hollow One. Does anyone have anything else they want to say about Hollow One before we move on? No.
I think one thing about this list that I thought was kind of interesting is normally Blood Moon seem very common and a very powerful sideboard card. I think it's kind of interesting they left those on the sidelines with this particular list at least.
Yeah, that is true. That's something that we especially at first we saw a whole lot of, and now it kind of moves in and out. Do you think there's a lot of advantage to be gained, Wyatt, from not having Blood Moon, since it is something that like a lot of the decks do play, and your opponents have to respect it to some percentage?
Yeah, I think once the cat is out of the bag that, this archetype has this option, you are going to lose a little bit of equity with people just playing around it just by default. But also, it's not like you're lacking for powerful sideboard options. So I do see a lot of really excellent choices in there already. And I mean, in Modern, that space is at a premium. So sometimes, it could be the case that Blood Moon just might not be where you want to be this week.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense to me. All right,
if you want an argument for or against Blood Moon, the biggest thing I would say is that it's sometimes hard to hold it in your hand and hit your 3rd land drop while still advancing your game plan with like Goblin Lore and Burning Inquiry. Just in that in the matchups where you want it most, it kind of conflicts with your main game plan, whereas something like Thoughtseize can still pull a lot of weight in some of those matchups without being so expensive that it's difficult not to discard it at random sometimes.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. Blood Moon's something I haven't played a whole lot recently because people kind of fetch around and I wanted to play other sideboard cards. But moving on, let's move on to the number 3 deck here. We have Mono Green Tron. So Wyatt, I'm going to throw it to you first. Have you played a lot of Tron? I know you said you would sleeved up Jace's, so I assume this is your mortal enemy. But have you messed with Tron any?
I've only played a handful of matches with it, but I've never played a deck that beats Tron. In my years and years of Modern, if I see a tower, I just think about lunch and the next round. But I think that Tron, especially, we're getting a lot of really fair decks. We're getting a lot of Mardu. People are I think there's gonna be a lot of people playing Teferi and Blue White Red. That's always been a very popular archetype. And if you want to be sizably favored in those matchups, I think this is the best place to be. Tron is just. It's just the natural predator for those slower interactive decks.
Mm-hmm. Michael, what do you think about Tron? I know this is a deck you played a lot of about a year and a half ago. You were pretty big on Mono Green Tron. What do you think about it now?
I think Tron is, like Wyatt said, I think Tron is very well positioned right now. The biggest thing with Tron, just generally, is that you really can't beat combo decks, almost no matter how hard you try. So I sort of actually appreciate that this list has just, basically given up on that completely. It's playing like just 3 relics in the main, and basically, I guess he's got a couple of Thought-Knot Seers on the board, but like no cages, nothing like that. Like, we're not beating Storm anyways, so why pretend like we can?
Mhm.
I think that was the general
Like-
idea when we migrated to mono green from green black
Yeah.
anyway, right?
We just found out that Collective Brutality and a couple of Thought Seizes wasn't enough to swing the matchup dramatically, so why bother?
And not to mention, more forests in a world of Field of Ruin is a huge deal. That's
Yep. I don't know. I think I don't know if you've played with this list specifically. If any of you have, I know that this one is playing a Field of Ruin. I know Matt and I talked about it a little bit.
This might have been the list I was playing with. I can't actually pull it up on my computer right now because it's gonna like crash my computer.
And can it be in the Field of?
But yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds like what I was playing.
Interesting. Yeah, I was going to bring up the Field of Ruin, so I'm glad you did. I've always thought the school of thought was like if you're going to search up a land to blow up another land, you'd want to like have Ghost Quarter so you don't have to commit the mana. But I guess a lot of the time, if you are searching up the Ghost Quarter, you probably have Tron. So you get to Field of Ruin for a lot less opportunity cost there. I'm not quite sure. What is this something that like? I mean, you guys just talked about how you're talking about it earlier. I would lean towards Ghost Quarter, but I'm down for trying Field of Ruin. It's definitely a powerful card.
My impression after having played one league with it is that Field of Ruin is probably not where I want to be.
Mhm.
It was nice that I just happened to draw it against Jeskai and got to kill a Celestial Colonnade when it wasn't like necessarily a problem yet, but I just had the mana and I had just drawn the Field of Ruin.
That makes a lot of sense. So with the mono green versions, we're seeing a new card pop up in the sideboard. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Karn, Scion of Urza. Is this a card that is just like people are trying out in this kind of archetype? Is it actually good? It seems to me like the matchups where I would mostly want Karn, I'm already good in those matchups, so I'm a little confused as to why I see it there. Michael, do you have any ideas as to why it's seeing a lot of play in the sideboards?
I would pass this one to Matt. When he had played this, he talked to me a little bit about sort of the sideboard package as a whole, and I thought it was interesting.
Right.
This sounds like this is the list that I played through my most recent league with
it
Tron.
is.
Yeah, so I was citing in basically everything in some of my matchups, just in case I thought they had a lot of hate. Like, particularly against the Jeskai variant that I played against, I cited in the Karns, the Thought Not Seers, the Thrag Tusks. I forget what else was in the board, but
It's cute though, right? If you expect a lot of Damping Spheres or Blood
Right.
Moons, like being
Damping
able
Sphere
to
and
side into
Stony
a deck
Silence
of
were the big
just
ones.
being able to set out a bunch of 10 drops for a bunch of like resilient 4s and 5s lets you still play some of your Tron game, but be a lot less weak to people trying to blow up your like really big mana strategy.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. So that's really appealing to me because like now you're having game against people who are bringing in hate cards for you. Another one, I'm thinking of is like Blood Moon, for example, especially with the mono green version. You can easily cast your Thrag Test and stuff like that through a Blood Moon, even though Blood Moon doesn't really beat Tron. This is kind of scary because I feel like every time we do the modern power rankings, Tron is always near the top of the list, even when we think it's like not a good metagame call. Is this kind of sideboard slot in Karn? Do you think this could be like the trick, like well, not even the trick, but like the card it needs to really push over and become that dominant force in the metagame? Or is Tron just not able to like consistently do that because you can target it? What do you think about that one, Wyatt?
I think it's very nice, but it doesn't really solve the structural weaknesses of sometimes this deck just can't beat a lot of combo decks. When I played it, my plan was, well, I hope this turn 3 Karn can Storm Raid him enough times to win with my other threats. So it lets you pivot pretty nicely, I think, but there's still a lot of matchups where if I were to bring Tron and sit down across from someone playing KCI or something like that, I would just be a little bit worried, and that's a hard problem to solve just with this shell because you don't have too many flex spots overall, I don't think.
Yep. Michael, you're nodding your head big time. You agree?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you can fight back. I think with the cards that exist right now, you can fight back very well against people trying to board in hate cards out of fair decks. I think like trying to board in something like Crumble the Dust or like Fulminate or Surgical against a sideboard plan like this is going to look terrible most of the time. But I agree that fundamentally you're just going to be bad against combo.
Okay. So if you let's say you're listening to the podcast, because I know Spencer gets this message a lot, and I've gotten a couple of times. Like someone's trying to buy their modern deck, and they're gonna have one modern deck. One of the decks that I normally suggest for them is Tron. Would you guys back up that recommendation if you're willing to play like these kind of games? You know what I mean? Is Tron still a solid choice? What do you think?
Yeah, I
of
mean,
that?
it's certainly going to be a solid choice all the time. I don't know if it would be the deck I would recommend because it is so one-dimensional. I think that it's going to get stale fairly quickly, but It depends on what you like, right? It's hard to really recommend a modern deck considering everything is so wide open.
Very true. All right, well, let's move on to the next deck. This is a deck you see a lot of in Modern. This is Jeskai Control. Micheal, Jeskai got Teferi. Is this deck the truth now? Is it the best?
Let's see on this one, Wyatt. I certainly, the strategy does not appeal to me fundamentally,
Okay.
and I'm very biased against the Serum Visions.
All right.
That is what I found about myself.
I like that, honestly. So, Wyatt, like we talked about before, you sleeved up Jace before. You've de-sleeved it. There's no temptation right now to go to Jeskai Control. This is the deck we're seeing Jonathan Rossum destroy the SCG circuit with. We're seeing him have a lot of success elsewhere as well. What do you think about Jeskai Control right now?
It really pains me to say it as someone who spent probably the first third of my Magic career only playing Blue, White, Red, and PTQs, but I just feel like it's not a great modern deck. Like the collection of cards are fantastic, efficient, but they are kind of narrow. A deck with so many removal spells, sometimes you can play out as a bad burn deck and have some game in a lot of matchups, but I just feel like it's very easy for the cards to line up incorrectly. It's a very fair deck problem. It's a very mid-range problem. And Modern's wide open. If the format does narrow down, maybe Humans is just the end-all be-all, and everything kind of warps around that. Jeskai could be a great spot to be in, but it just does a lot of things that I just don't like to be doing in the Modern format. A little bit too reactive, I think, for my tastes.
That's fair. Matt, what do you think about a deck like Jeskai? I never got to hear your opinions on it, so I'm excited to hear yours as well.
I actually could not have said it better than Wyatt just said it. I agree with everything he just said.
Just preaching it.
Yep.
Yeah. I also am not a huge Jeskai fan. Like I kind of have a rule in Modern where it's just don't play fair. So unless I'm playing Green White Valley Town for fun, because that deck's just too much fun. But that's neither here or there. What is here though is I'm gonna play Devil's Advocate for Jeskai Control real quick, and I want you guys to shoot it down, maybe talk some reason to people. All right. So you get to play powerful cards, and I this is loose here, I know, with cards like Search for Escanta, Snapcaster Mage, Bolt, and Path. And with that, you can answer pretty much and find your answers for pretty much every deck in the format right now that's popular. We just talked about Affinity. That's traditionally a great matchup for you. Hollow One with Supreme Verdict and Path, they're able to easily beat that deck. Tron is a little bit tougher, and spoilers, everyone, Humans is going to be our number one deck. Surprise to no one there. That matchup is supposedly very good. Why am I not playing this deck if it beats all the decks I expect from the winner's metagame? Why am I not doing this, Micheal?
Well, because although you have cards against all these decks, you have to draw the right card at the right time, and ultimately, to facilitate that, the best draw spell we're playing is
Search for Escanta.
Like some combination of Search for Escanta, Teferi, and Serum Visions, and those cards are just like, even Search for Escanta is a lot worse than what your opponents are doing in Modern.
Mm-hmm.
I just think you're playing a lot of slow conditional spells, and you can't take advantage of your opponent's stumbling. You never get free games, and ultimately, like, you talk about the good cards in this deck, but this deck plays a lot of bad cards. I have very little interest in playing Lightning Helix, Sphinx's Revelation, Cryptic Command, Supreme Verdict, Wrath of God. I don't think any of those cards are good.
I appreciate that you just try to sneak in Cryptic Command in there.
It sucks. That card is terrible.
So you don't like Cryptic Command? That is a big draw to this deck. Why do you not like Cryptic Command, Micheal?
It's not a good Magic card. Because it costs 4 mana.
So you're saying in the context of Modern, it's like not a good Magic card, right?
Tron gets to cast Ugin for 4 mana. You're like, they have to cast Ulamog for Cryptic Command? I don't see the appeal of that card.
Okay, all right. I think we're going to get a lot of hashtags, would that be good, about that. But I'm excited for those hashtags. Make sure to tag at Magic Mike MTG there as well.
Come play Jeskai in Vegas, and give me that matchup.
Yeah, Micheal wants you to play Jeskai. There you go. He only wants what's best for you as well. So you gotta play it now. But before we move on, I do want to talk about one last thing, and that is Teferi. We talked about it at the start of the show a little bit. Teferi has usurped Jace as the control card choice. We hear a lot of talk about it being like a 3-mana planeswalker. It can take over the game on its own. It's better than Jace in Modern. How much of that do we think is Teferi is very good, or how much of that is like, oh, it's very good and it's just a new thing, so it's seeing more play? And how much of that is actually the truth, do you think, Wyatt?
I think a lot of it is the truth. A few big reasons why. A planeswalker that starts at 5 loyalty, functionally just a ton more than 3 in Modern. It also does stuff like, I mean, if you look at all these spells, you get basically all the interaction you want with the untap ability. And not to mention, once you combine Teferi and Search for Azcanta, that's almost an insurmountable advantage in the fair matchups. So if I was going to play this deck, it's because I haven't had a chance to untap to flip Search with Teferi yet. That sounds sweet. And, winning the game, but making your opponent play for 10 more minutes, that is very appealing to me as well on a very base level. So I think that a lot of the strength from this deck just comes from the flexibility of Teferi too. I mean, that -3 ability, a lot of random permanents in Modern that you can't really always play answers for. So that is, I think, a pretty crucial piece as well.
Okay, I can believe that. Yeah, I have nothing else to say about Jeskai because I'm trying to be a nice person on this episode. So
What I would say is that Teferi is definitely not better than Jace, but when all of your answers require mana investment, it is effectively a 3-mana planeswalker as opposed to Jace being 4, and that's a big deal.
yeah, so
Like obviously, it's never going to usurp Jace in Legacy, where we have Force of Wills and Dazes and everything else. I did see somebody playing it on the VSL in Vintage, so
yeah. I was gonna say Joe
Never
Lissette's been, I think, playing it in Legacy as well. And I know, didn't it top 8 like a Vintage, like one of those things in Europe the first weekend it was out? I don't know.
I mean, to be fair though, I wouldn't really take a lot of Joe Lissette's deck choice or like his tech choices for like a hard and fast rule.
All right, there's the bus, and we're going to humans. So humans. Emma Handy wrote an article that started a lot of controversy. That was, if you're not playing humans, you're doing it wrong, essentially. Micheal, what do you think about that? You did pretty well with humans at the last Modern GP you went to. Is humans just the truth? Should we all just be playing the humans?
Yeah, I mean, whenever I start running out of Moto dollars, I usually just play humans for a minute, and then everything's fine. It's very good. I think it's somewhat exploitable, but it's surprisingly non. Like, you have a lot of different ways you can win a game. And it's in game ones. I would say the worst thing about humans is probably that your sideboard is, and pretty much every deck will improve against you in sideboard games.
Yeah, your sideboard's definitely not great. Wyatt, this is a deck that, you talk about de-sleeving Jaces. Is humans one that you considered picking up for the GP?
Yeah, as everything stands now, it's been taken a lot of my testing time to pretty good results. And unlike a lot of synergy decks in Modern, which maybe it's aggressive to classify this as one, it just feels like the things you're doing, the creatures all on the curve are great. It just feels like I'm pre-boarded against all these very linear combo decks. You get a lot of free wins that way. And it's just that nice mix of it is aggressive and is proactive, but it almost just has all these built-in haymakers for a lot of different matchups that you just kind of get a free roll because they're human. So I think it's fantastic. You do have a little bit of flexibility in the build too. You see things like the Resto Angels, Kessig Malcontents, things like that. So you do have some room to tinker with it as well if you think you can get an edge that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think it's aggressive to call it like a synergy deck, like a tribe deck. I think it does. It has more aspect than a lot of those decks, but it does. It's got humans. You play cards like that. Matt, you're looking at humans. You're over here thinking, man, this is just a bunch of creatures. Why can't we beat this deck, Matt? It's just a bunch of creatures.
Well, so it's not just that the threats aren't really that resilient, but they are plentiful, and they do actually get rather large and out of control quickly if you're playing any kind of a deck that's trying to interact with them. So that's kind of how you're trying to attack the fair matchups. And then, like Wyatt said, like there are a lot of tools already pre-boarded for any of the combo decks, like between Meddling Mages and Kitesail Freebooters and Thalias. The Hate Bear strategy is strong.
Okay, I believe that. I want to talk about the sideboard a little bit because, Micheal said it every time we talk about humans on the show, which has been a lot since it's came out. Came from being that it's just a flash in the pan to being the best deck, or considered the best deck in Modern at least. The sideboard it is never the same in any deck. Is that just like a good trait about humans where it gets to have all these different cards, or are people, do you think, still trying to figure out the different sideboard slots when it comes to the deck, Wyatt?
I think it's a little bit of both. I do think that it does have a reasonable range of things that it can do. I mean, humans, if you just gather, search Modern legal humans, you're going to be sitting there for a few hours. So, and a few of them are pretty good. I mean, just looking at this list, you do have some incredible, like Kataki is an excellent sideboard card. I actually really like the gut shots too. That's helped me a lot in matchups that I thought were going to be tough, like Elves and Affinity. very mana efficient things there. And I love the Sync Collector and Daredevil package for when you need to grind. So I think that other decks might get a more edge, post board than you might. But these aren't all slouches in the board too. I think there's a lot of powerful options.
Mm-hmm. Michael, have you ever looked into playing the Humans deck that was similar to the Pro Tour one that was playing more actual mana sources and not Ziggurats to play better sideboard cards? Because I always hear you talking about how the sideboard is so bad. Why I was talking about that a little bit.
The biggest problem is that you either can't really play 5 colors or you really just have to play. I mean, what you could probably do is if you really wanted to play like Rest in Peace or whatever, you could just suck it up and play Rest in Peace. I mean, I see some of these lists are playing Damping Sphere, and if you can play Damping Sphere, you can definitely play Rest in Peace. So it's not like you can't. The biggest issue is really just that your density of creatures goes so far in a lot of matchups that siding a bunch of creatures in like your creature energy deck or spell. You also have Aether Vials. You're only playing 19 land. Everything's worse as soon as you start removing any creatures, basically.
Okay.
Everything kind of feeds off of. So it's both an issue with the mana and an issue with just the makeup of the deck and the style of games you're trying to play.
All right, that's fair. All right.
Don't they only have 5 lands that cast Rest in Peace?
Yeah, they only have 5.
Sure,
lands.
and nobles. No, they're playing like
nobles.
7 plus nobles.
I mean, I'm not looking at a deck list, so I'm trying to think of this off the top of my head. It's like 1 plains and 4 horizon canopies.
A couple.
And
I guess they
2
play some
Seachrome
Seachrome
Coasts,
Coasts, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly have more sources for something like Damping Sphere, but you only need one of them to be white. I'm not saying that like Rest in Peace. There's probably a reason that no one's playing Rest in Peace in their sideboard. But I think if you wanted to,
You play Ixalan Jailer anyway. It's fine.
Sure.
Is Ixalan Jailer a human?
I don't know if it is or not, but I
Does
mean,
it matter? I mean,
you have
Kentucky is
Ancient Ziggurat, so
Oh yeah, there you go. I like it. Well, if it was a human, we get the max synergy. We would have broke it.
No, it's a zombie wizard. It's a zombie wizard. Sorry.
Isn't that just
Obvious.
a necromancer? I don't know. That feels weird. All right, we're gonna go.
Can it be a former human?
A what? Oh, a
Creature
former
type
human?
former human?
Yeah. Oh man, that's so good. We need to have Champion of the Parish for a zombie next time we go back to Innistrad. Hook us up now, Watsy. Hook us up. All right, we're gonna go around real quick. I'm gonna ask you yes or no, each of you. Humans is the best deck in Modern. Starting with Wyatt,
Yes.
Matt,
yes.
Michael.
Conditionally, yes.
Yeah, it's like for like right now, not all the time, but like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's yes.
Okay, I agree. I was just curious. I didn't know if anyone had any differing opinions. I wanted to talk about that a little bit, but just for the people at home. But yeah, I think the deck is very, very good, and I wish I had had more time to play it as well. But that is life. So let's move on to what would we play this week in Modern. If you had to play a deck right now, we have to register our decks for the GP this moment. What are you registering, Michael?
Hollow One.
Matt?
Hollow One.
Darby?
Humans, but mostly because I just bought all the cards, and that would be kind of a tilt not to be able to use them.
I can respect that.
It's as good a reason as any. Access goes a long ways.
I like that. Yeah, I'd probably play Titan Shift, but that's just because I've played it so much, and I've had like so very little time to play Modern, and I just won't before the GP. So, leaning on past knowledge there. But let's move on to our training grounds this week. This week, we got Wyatt Darby on, the Darb Father, to talk about his Pro Tour experience and answer some. You can't laugh at all my jokes, buddy. Yeah, let some of them go through sometimes for the people at home. I know that it's hard for you.
You were dying at that one too, Mason. I could tell.
Yeah, I always think I'm so funny though, which is the problem. I just don't know what jokes are actually not funny or not because I feel like I'm hilarious. But
I'm going to introduce you to someone at Oasis named Casey.
Okay.
You two can be good friends.
Oh, I like having good friends. That's awesome. But no, we've got Wyatt on to talk about his Pro Tour experience and what it was like to get on through there and answer a bunch of Patreon questions. So let's just hop right into it. Wyatt, how long have you been playing competitive Magic?
Competitive, probably like the RTR PTQ season when that was sealed. How many years ago that was? Maybe in terms of how long it's been since I actually had a chance to go to the Pro Tour, probably more like maybe 3 or 4 is when I started to, consistently kind of go deep in some of these qualifiers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you mean I'm sorry, I don't quite understand that question, and I was also multitasking, so I might have missed it. Are you saying that you weren't trying, or you just didn't have an actual shot at going?
Oh, it's just one of those where, I was just consistently getting outplayed by a lot of more experienced players, and it just took a few years to kind of, get all the situations under my belt that might come up in the course of a tournament, and just kind of have that base of knowledge that I think is so important when you're playing competitive Magic.
Okay, that makes sense. Sorry about that. I was taking care of something for the stream there, so I wasn't paying full attention. That's on me. But Wyatt, how did you get to the Pro Tour? Did you went through a GP, qualify through the RPTQs? How'd you get there?
Yeah, our RPTQ. It's probably time I should give a shout out to my boy Profane Procession for showing up in one of my 6 sealed packs. That did a lot of work for me, and a lot of it was that, and I feel like generally speaking, good limited skills are kind of going to transfer from set to set. So I was able to use a lot of what I already knew to kind of leverage the sweet pool I had open.
Okay, awesome. Do you like limited? Is that a format you really enjoy playing? Like that kind of format?
It's up and down. I like it a lot more if blocking is a viable strategy, which hasn't quite been the case until Dominaria came back around. It felt like. But I do, I always love drafting. I try and get around 25 to 30 minimum each set, even if I don't really have any competitive requirements. But it's just it's a different kind of Magic, and I think it's a nice change up from, just grinding a bunch of standard leagues all the time.
That makes sense. Matt, I want to ask you a question because I don't know you as well as I know Michael, Matt. We're still getting to know each other. Is limited something you enjoy playing?
Yeah, I do. I probably don't play it as often as I should, though. I generally won't play it unless there is a reason to, but I do really like this set, so I've been playing this one even when there's no reason to.
Oh, that's good. This is fun, buddy. That's a reason.
I've long forgotten that part of Magic.
I'm glad I could bring that back into your life. So Wyatt, how did you get on Mono Red as your deck for the PT?
So it was very begrudgingly, to be honest. The first thing I started out with, besides getting some improvised, shenanigans out of my system in the first week after the spoilers were completely done, I tried a lot of white-black. I really liked Toolcraft and Scrounger Heart. I thought that package was pretty strong already, and Karn was a natural fit. But it's just that deck, the sideboard plan was really awkward. A lot of matchups, you kind of had to cut all of that aggressive element out of your deck, and it just felt very disjointed. So I realized that Mono Red was very similar in that its aggressive starts weren't quite as good as the Toolcraft curve outs, but the mid-range game you could play post-board. I just felt it was a lot more cohesive of a strategy. When you're doing your Chandras and your Glorybringers and going big, I just felt like it was a very seamless transition compared to the hoops I had to jump through in white-black.
Okay. So I meant to ask you this as well. Did you test on a testing team, like locally or anything like that, or with a group, or what was your testing process like going into the PT, especially with one so far out? This one was like a month and a half after the set drop, so definitely not the normal.
Yeah, a lot of it was Magic Online and testing with a buddy of mine, Steve Locke, from Ames, Iowa. He's won 2 of the last 3 GPs he's went to, just kind of in awe, and I was really happy that he was, able to get so many games in with me. That helped me out a ton, but no traditional team or anything like that. I just didn't quite have the network or connections at that point.
At that point, you see that? That's what happens when you win the PT, baby.
I mean, you win the Pro Tour, right? Yeah.
At that point, Darby's turning down Pantheon left and right. But so let's talk about though. What was the experience like? Just going. So this was your second Pro Tour, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So what was the experience like? Because I don't know your exact record going into top 8 because I missed almost all of day 2 coverage. But can you kind of walk us through that whole? What was it like getting into day 2 and then being top 8 contention, top 8, etc.?
Yeah. So my first Pro Tour, didn't day 2 was basically just close to dead after round 4. So after I 3-0'd my drafts and won my first 2 rounds of standard, I was feeling on top of the world. Day 2 was already locked up. That was kind of one. My original goal was already checked off. Unfortunately, day 1 ended with 3 straight losses. 2 really close ones to Constrictor decks and a Mono Red Mirror, and it was kind of tough. I had to step back and say hey, 5-3 is still I would have been ecstatic about this before the PT. And then, yeah, 7-0 day 2, another 3-0 draft, lots of Tatiovas in both my decks was a real big deal. And I just finally got the good matchups for the deck on day 2, like, blue-black mid-range, Esper control decks with, like, lots of tap lands and kind of a weakness to Chandra, it seemed like. So in terms of, how the PT experience was, imagine your best daydream you could have about how the Pro Tour could go, and it was basically just that. Really just amazing all around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what was it like getting your name called? Like, so I guess my second question is, did you know you were locked for top 8, or were you like on breakers?
So it was actually a clean cut. I was able to draw the last round after squeaking out a 2-out lightning strike in game 3 of round 15. So yeah, that elation got to carry over for like a solid 2 hours.
Awesome, that's great to hear. So, what have you learned from what have you learned from this experience besides don't play treasure map? I really liked your part of the interview. You mentioned, how you take treasure map out of your deck, but what else did you learn?
A lot of it was just like, just sitting across from Owen, just how to be composed when a lot of people are watching and judging your play, and just, how to make sure that, I have an easy enough time losing matches of Magic. I don't want to do it because I gave away something with my body language. He was just really masterful about staying even keeled, and really just, you learn a lot from GPs too, but these tournaments are marathons, and you just can't get too up or down from one good or bad draw either way. And, I just think that level-headedness, not getting too far ahead of myself when I was 1 or 2 or 3 rounds away from top 8, really helped me, where maybe like a year or 2 ago, I wouldn't have been able to get myself in that headspace.
Okay, yeah, I was actually going to say, I was going to compliment you. I was watching with my friend Caroline, shout out to Caroline, and we're talking about how calm and composed Darby was, and we're like, this guy's awesome. And then to hear you say that, it's like, oh, that's something like he's had to work on and had to improve. Michael, is that something that you've had to work on when it comes to being in Magic? I don't want to let you just sit there.
I think no. I think that everyone has to, like, I don't think that that's natural for anyone, and I think that basically that's something that every single person is going to have to try to get better at, and that pretty much everyone is going to have a lot of room for improvement, and it's really hard to understand that although it can be fun and exciting, like, your emotions don't help you within the game, right? You mostly need to be calm and analytical and remain that way even if you're frustrated or if you're excited, right? I mean, the flip side can happen where you get a little too excited and you find ways to give your opponents outs that it didn't look like they had.
Definitely agree. Well, I think you did a great job with that, Wyatt. So that's going to do it for the questions we have, but now we're going to open up to some Patreon questions. So let me pull this up here so I can read the names as well. Jeremiah Russell asks, the question is more of the whole cast, so you guys feel free to answer. What is your standard Modern Legacy deck that you love to play, and why do you love to play it? So, like, you can just pick one of those if you have one you have a strong passion towards, but, like, what deck is the one you've loved to play the most, Wyatt?
Ooh, it may be controversial, but I loved 4-Color Rally.
Okay.
That deck, it felt like, it was so nuanced, and the games could be so intricate that I just really, it might have been a miserable experience for a lot of people, but I did love playing that deck.
Okay. Matt, what about you?
So we're talking about like all time?
Yeah, all time.
I think my favorite deck was the Aristocrats Act 2 from back in Innistrad Standard.
Mm-hmm. That was a sweet deck. That was like right when I was starting to play. So I remember playing against that deck at F&M and being like, God, how did you beat this? Hinderrocker, what about you?
Well, I really liked Rally as well, but probably like the first deck I ever played, like for real, when I was playing Magic as like a kid, was Heartbeat of Spring and Weird Harvest. So you'd cast Weird Harvest to tutor up Drift of Phantasms and then transmute them for early harvest to untap all your lands and kill your opponent with I think it was like a Maga Trader to Mortals or something. And the deck was just sweet.
I feel like I've
was
actually
like
heard you
12.
explain this combo to me like 6 times, and I still have no idea what any of these cards are.
Okay, so Weird Harvest is X green. Each player searches the library for up to X creatures. Heartbeat of Spring doubles all lands, or doubles all mana that lands produce for every player, and also happens to cost 3. And then Early Harvest untaps all basic lands target player controls and also costs 3. So you can get these 3 mana creatures with Transmute, and turn them into a bunch of early harvests to continue to untap all your lands, and then kill your opponent with a card that's X, black, black, black. It's an XX, and when it ETBs, your opponent loses X life.
Sure.
It was great. I mean,
So
it was,
basically
like,
a
kinda
fireball,
bad.
right? But like, you don't have to necessarily
Yeah.
deal the whole amount.
No, and then you'd like side into like random Kamigawa 5/5 legendary dragons and like Godos and sweet stuff like that, because people would side in these hate cards and you just be like, oh, I'm just playing all basic land rug mid range. It was great.
I like that. Yeah, I think my favorite deck has got to be either Lantern Control or Green White Valley Town. I love blowing up lands, and I love not letting my opponents attack. So it's a hard choice to make. I'd probably go with Lantern. Lantern's giving me... So one thing that I love in Magic that is not the common love thing is I love like getting salty Moto chats and all that kind of stuff. It's my favorite part of Moto. Not the testing, not the knowledge, just the salt. So getting to play Lantern and stuff like that is just a real joy for me. And I'll never forget, like, I picked up playing Lantern right when the Scry came out, and one of my first, I think it's like my second time playing the deck, my opponent mulls to 5, and they're like, whatever, I'll keep. I'm on the play, and they scry, and they just slam the card on top. And I had like an Ancient Strength, so I was like, well, I can just Codex Shredder their top card. They probably need it. I mill a land. They never draw another land. And you can hear my voice. I get happy every time I think about that. So that's probably my favorite Magic memory and my favorite deck. So yeah, it's got to be a Lantern. All right. Hinderocker, can you say this last name? I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. And it's very dependent. It's the second question down under Patreon question.
Josh Collier says hello.
Hey, that
Just-
was absolutely
just
the
hi.
correct pronunciation. Hi, Josh. Good to see that you're watching and tuning in.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know why Mason didn't think he could pronounce that.
I thought it was Collar. So like I definitely would have got like for Collar or something like
Collier.
that. Well, his
Yeah,
whole thing
okay.
is to like say hi to Wyatt. So like if I say the wrong name, it's gonna be awkward. But if you say it correctly, it all makes sense, and we wouldn't have this moment right now that we're having. But I'm glad we still had
That's
that.
very good.
Yeah.
Really a disaster right now.
One of the Patreon questions we have with the name that we didn't actually get is, what area of your game do you feel you're the weakest in and you still need to work on?
Personally, I touched on it briefly earlier, is kind of the combo decks. A lot of things that are a little bit more on maybe solitaring and fighting through one piece of hate is something that I always had a really hard time on. Knowing maybe if you're playing a combo deck that might just have to jam into maybe potential permission, like knowing when to do that, picking your spots. That's just something that I think would be really good to kind of get myself a little bit more well-rounded and help out with Modern a lot too.
Okay, awesome. Henry Middleston asks, how do you make sure you're practicing with a purpose? I know just jamming matches on MTGO won't get me better, but I'm not sure how to learn as much from each of my matchups as possible. And he opens this one up to everyone as well. So Wyatt, how do you play with a purpose? Or how did you get to that point?
Yeah, I just try and take a couple, maybe at least seconds after every match and just kind of ask myself, like, well, how did I lose those games? And try and avoid easy answers like, oh, mana screw, or, or my opponent had a nut draw. It's like, was there anything in my control that I could have changed? Were there any other lines that I didn't consider enough or at all? And just try and go over everything with a fine-tooth comb, because the worst mistakes are the ones that become ingrained, and you just take them for granted as being the correct play. And then you can't know that you're playing poorly if you think it's the right thing to do.
Awesome. Matt, what about you?
This is something I actually struggle with a lot, just because I play so much. It's hard to just not autopilot. I've probably talked about this on the cast a number of times, but I find myself, like, honestly, I'll play 6 hours of Magic and then think back on it and realize that I couldn't remember anything that had just happened. So most of the time, if I'm playing on Skype with somebody else, that helps a lot. You have to justify your own actions, which helps a lot.
Michael, what about you?
Yeah, I really like playing with others, just because, I think that it helps you get away from, Wyatt's talking about, ingrained actions that you're perceiving as correct. And if someone else is just like, are you sure that's the right thing to do? And then you sort of talk through, what you're hoping happens as a result of this play, or why you're sequencing it that way. I think just... I've talked about this a ton, but I think just trying to learn to play with intent is probably the best thing you can do to continue to try to get better. Because if we make a mistake, but we had a reason for making it, then there's a learning point and we can get better. if we're just doing things to do them, it's really hard to take anything away from the games.
Very true. I was gonna say like basically everything you all said, so I'm just gonna say, click back on the back 15 a couple times. You want to hear it again because I think you all nailed it. Chris Hansen asks, did you know that the attack with hazard on the second to last turn left you dead on board, or were you playing to an out of drawing Glorybringer?
Yeah, and it's kind of weird and counterintuitive, but with the flow of the game, Pinto had cards in his hand the entire time and was on 4 lands. And it was kind of the thing where I had to ask myself, like, well, what could those cards be? And the natural answer was, like, I thought some of them had to cost 5 mana. And, knowing his deck list, like, that could be a Glorybringer that basically just attacks and kills me right away, or a Siege Gang Commander, which either blocks my hazard forever, or, throws some goblins upstairs to, like, finish me off. So, yeah, really what I had to do is just hope that he might make the same attack, that turn with just his 2 flyers. I could kill that within a braid. And, just really, if you're behind on board in red mirrors, just staying still is about the worst thing you can do. You have to give yourself some potential to win. And, if I said it before, but if we play that game like 100 or 1,000 times after turn 5, I probably don't win more than once or twice. But sometimes everything does really kind of come together, and you get rewarded for it.
Yeah, well, that's also why we play the games, right? Otherwise, we just like put all the numbers in the calculator, put it down, and like go boop, Hinderrocker one or something. Who knows? But
That's so powerful. I don't even have to be in the finals.
Yeah. In fact, all you have to do is just put your information in. You have to take a little 21 and me question test, put in your deck lesson, and boom, we figure out who wins the Pro Tour. And that's the future, baby. That's That's
Nice.
Magic Arena.
Well, it's probably not nice for any of us. It's probably really good for Owen.
Yeah.
Owen won 11 Pro Tours in a row.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
So good. He just started flunking questions on purpose to give people a chance. Jonathan Krisner asks, first of all, they start with congratulations and well deserved. Then they say, what are your tournament winning decks' exploitable weaknesses and bad matchups, and what are your best matchups? So, what are the weaknesses for Mono Red, and what are the decks that you're really glad to see as Mono Red?
So I think Black Green as an archetype is something that you can really build to punish kind of my version of Mono Red. Walking Ballista can prey on the 1 toughness creatures. Snake demands an answer, or your creatures are just too big to kill with anything. And there's also just the combination of like Harvester, life linking, or Gear Hulk just making everything on the ground just get completely brick walled. The games don't always play out that way. Like, you can still win a fair percentage, but yeah, all those cards in conjunction make the games very dicey, and that's how I lost 2 of my rounds in the Swiss, was to Black Green.
Okay. So what are the decks you're really happy to see? Like, if I could put you against any deck in the finals over again, what deck would you play against? That's a real deck. You can't say Constructs.
Yeah, that's kind of a tough one. How I look at Red is it's basically like the Rock deck of this format, in that like it's got a lot of fair matchups. I guess maybe some of these Esper control decks, it just has they're loaded up on tap lands. Their interaction is expensive. Like, those kinds of decks I think should be probably some of the best matchups you can get. But yeah, there's nothing. That's kind of why I like the deck so much, is that it feels like a lot of 55-45 matchups where you kind of always have some outs to win those matches.
Gotcha. So our second to last question here is, how are you siding against control decks, specifically the more blue-black based versions of the control deck? So like the Esper deck you just talked about, etc. Was there anything you were doing different from the blue-white, or is it pretty much the same?
No, I mean, the core of the cards you have that are poor, they kind of cross over. Things like Soulscar Mage, Abrade and Shock are probably the worst ones. And that's kind of what the treasure map was there for. It was supposed to be like a 4th Chandra against some of these decks that like might have Vraska's Contempt to potentially kill it. So, in lieu of those cheaper, very low impact cards, you're getting things like your Chandras, your Glorybringers. If you think they might have Lyra, Fight with Fire is okay. It's probably worse against blue-black, though, when they can't settle you. So typically, though, the plan is kind of go bigger. You still want to keep them on the back foot, but typically those decks are okay. And sometimes leaving in a couple, lightning strikes is fine, because those decks have like wider Black Knights for you to kill sometimes too.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And I think this is the most important question we can all agree. Are you going to get a full back tattoo of Glorybringer?
I think I'll probably hedge a little bit and maybe just get like a nice print for like the wall behind me here. I think that's probably as far as I'll go on that. Not a huge tattoo guy, at least at the moment.
All right. What if we meet in the middle and we get just a tramp stamp of a Glorybringer, just Glory B.
That's fine. Yeah, I
Alright.
could probably shamefully hide that. Yeah.
All right, awesome. We'll see you at Vegas. We'll
Yeah.
make sure to take care of that then. So that's gonna do it for the training grounds this week. Wyatt, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been great having you. We're not done with you yet. We still got a couple more questions and things for to interact with you, but it was great to have you on the show here. We did a lot of awesome conversation topics, and it was cool to talk to you. You're a very cool and down to earth guy.
Yeah, no, really excited to be on. It's just, content creation in terms of Magic is just, I love talking about it. It's really my passion, and I can tell that you guys are kind of the same way. So it's just, kind of what I really would like to be doing is just playing Magic, talking about Magic, and helping folks out, trying to get to that next level.
That's awesome. So do you have anywhere that people can find you? Like I know you don't have a Twitter as of right now. Do you have a Twitch or anything like that?
Yeah, that's kind of in the works right now. Getting a Twitch stream set up, getting that Twitter. But in the meantime, if you guys see me at GPs, come up, say hi. I'm always more than happy to do that. I remember as a newer player, years ago, I walked up to Craig Wesco at a GP, and he was like really kind about giving me tips about my deck list and telling me like, oh, don't play X spells with Bloodbraid Elf, and it was like, oh yeah, I never even thought of that, Mr. Wesco. Thank you so much. So, yeah, if you guys see me at Grand Prix, I'll be out to a lot of them in the next few months. So always really happy to interact and answer any questions.
Awesome. Well, Michael, where can people find you if they want to talk to you about how good Cryptic Command is as a Magic the Gathering card?
You can tweet all of your Cryptic Command love at Magic Mike MTG. You can also Facebook message it to me if you are into that. My name is Michael Hinderrocker. Well, it's probably not going to get heated. I mean,
from your side,
there's
people
nothing
love
to get
Cryptic
heated
Command.
about.
Huh?
It's fine. You can love things that are bad. It's okay.
Yeah, that's what people tell me about Taylor Swift all the time. Matt Kling, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook under my first and last name, or you can find me on Twitter at the Witchkling.
There you go. So before we move on here, Darby, I saw you move back. Are you pro or anti Taylor Swift?
I think I'm probably lawful neutral regarding her. I have enough of my friends who would, probably fight you to the death over that statement. I just don't want anyone to get hurt,
Oh, I love Taylor Swift. I have Taylor Swift tokens. I'm all about it. So, but people like to diss on it. It's fine. Haters gonna hate. You can find me at Mason E. Clark on Twitter. You can tweet me all your Taylor Swifts. You can tag me in Ariana Grande getting engaged, all that pop culture stuff, Bachelorette stuff. I love it. You can also message me on Facebook at Mason Clark. And then, if you see me at events, someone saw me at the RPTQ. I don't actually remember if I got your name or not, but it was nice to meet you. You rock as well. If you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com at patreonccmtg. We're currently on the works towards having a Pro Tour exclusive episode, so we get to talk to people like Michael, Matt, Danny, get them on the show, get some stuff. I would like to also have it a little bit pre-PT, so have their deck lists and stuff, have that go up after Friday, and then we'll do a second part of it after the show. We're still in the talks about that. You can also go to patreon.com and see the other half of Constructed Clash. There's not going to be a Constructed Clash this week because Spencer is in Vegas, and I had a bunch of RPTQ stuff, so no Constructed Clash until the next week. But remember, each week you can go to youtube.com/constructed criticism, and you can see one half of it for free along with the 2 deck techs. And then if you want to see the other side of the gameplay along with the post-match interview, you can go to patreon.com. Being a patron of any amount gets it. It's not a tier thing. It's not a stretch thing. It's something that me and Spencer both just love to do and wanted to see people do. So we're like, why don't we just do it if we want to see it? So you can go there and do that. You can also join the conversation in the Facebook group of the Constructed Criticism family. Join there. Join the group. Have some fun. If you're a patron of $5 or more, you can join the Constructed Critics group where Michael Hinderrocker can say something about your deck list like fascinating or that's interesting. And then you can also join the Discord and the clan on Magic Online. You can find all of that information on the Constructed Criticism website. But now it's time for hashtag Would That Be Good. Hashtag Would That Be Good is our Twitter outreach program. If you tweet it, we will read it. I'm pulling it up. I'm excited. I know we've had some interesting ones get tweeted out in the last week or so, so I'm going to scroll back here. All right. So the first tweet is from Spencer Howland with the first Constructed Clash is mostly up at this time. It is all up. You can check it out. We just did the promotion for that a second ago. I really love it. You can watch me beat Spencer. I'm the Howland Slayer now. That's how it works. I've never lost to Spencer in a recorded Magic.
You
Magic
should never
will.
play him again.
I'm just gonna win every. Well,
we're never playing again.
I'm gonna play one more time to give him like a fighting chance, but after that, I'm gonna have to start like having you fill in for me because his feelings are gonna get hurt if he loses that much. So,
Oh man.
yep. Adrian tweeted hashtag would that be good in response to my tweet. So my RPTQ took place in a mall because we were gonna be capped at like 40 teams originally. So since we're a hub state, they actually bought space in the mall, but we were right in front of the JC Penney's. So it looks like JC's Penney's is a proud sponsor of our RPTQ. So that was a fun experience.
That's so awkward. That is so awkward.
So not many people
Really?
realize that JCPenney's had a bathroom in there, but me and my team would just walk through JCPenney's if we never had to go to the bathroom instead of waiting in the incredibly long line across the hall. JCPenney's was great though. They had great customer service. They showed us right where the bathroom was, and when they opened up their like little gate thing, their AC came like rushing onto the playing tables, and it was so nice. So I love JCPenney. I'm a proud sponsor. I don't like Macy's. Get off that. Snapkeep Arcade tweets, thanks to CCMTG and Spencer Howland for joining the Snapkeep Arcade this week for a great MTG Arena deck tech. Hashtag would that be good? Hashtag always improving. Snapkeep Arcade is a YouTube channel that is doing Magic the Gathering content. I think he's focusing mainly on MTG Arena right now. I only saw one video. It was the video of Spencer here. But yeah, he has Spencer on this week. You can hear Spencer talk about Blue White. So maybe you're thinking about thinking about playing Blue White in a PPTQ this weekend, and you're like, man, I really want to hear what Spencer had to say on that deck. You go to Snapkeep Arcade on YouTube.com, watch the video. They talk about it. Even though it's an Arena video, Arena is now mirroring real life, and people are just playing real decks on there. Might not have the best competition in the world, but you are seeing the real decks. Josh tweets, hashtag would that be good? Say hi to Darby again. So there you go. We got him in there. Spencer Howland tweets, I really love all the listeners of the CC, MTG, and the rest of the podcast we do, and I usually am super active in answering questions and getting back to people ASAP. This week, however, I am on vacation with my family and won't be responding at all. Hashtag MTG Dad. Hashtag would that be good? So what we're hearing is Spencer's busy. If you want to ask questions to someone, you should definitely tweet.
What decks does Spencer like?
What do you mean?
This is a really good opportunity to criticize his deck.
Oh, yeah. So
He can't tweet you back.
That's true, yeah. So decks that Spencer loves, Titan Shift. Another deck
Well, you could just tweet that hatred at me.
you could tweet it at me, but I will be much more like, okay, brah, Spencer might respond with you once he's back from vacation, which would be the best. Because you know he'll see it, he just won't respond, so you know it's building up inside. What are the decks Spencer like? Well, Spencer's Snake guy, obviously. He loves Snake. Oh, Savage Knuckleblade in general. Boom. That deck. Alright, he's not here. And no one, it's just us four here. No one else can hear us. Savage Knuckleblade, that's not a playable card, right?
No.
Yeah, we all agree? Alright.
It torpedoed too many of my events for me to be able to say yes, honestly.
I would not classify that as a good Magic card.
All right, well, you have it here first officially. The CCMTG brand does not approve of Savage Knuckleblade in any form. What did we learn this week? We're going to wrap up here. Michael, what did you learn this week?
Well, I learned a little bit about Modern, and it was nice to get back to Wyatt and just hear his take on how his Pro Tour experience was and, you know, how he felt about his testing and deck choice and that kind of stuff.
Matt, what about you?
Well, again, nice to get to talk to Wyatt after his Pro Tour win. That's great. But yeah, mostly just been learning the same things I always learned, that I'm bad at Magic. So.
Preaching to the choir here, buddy. Think how I feel right now. Wyatt, what about you?
I think the big thing is that, for everyone out there who's listening, if this is your passion and your dream, you can make it happen. If I had to pick one person who would have won Pro Tour Dominaria, I probably would have been at 375 down the list of people who were showing up. So, just, be put in the games, just really think about what you're doing and the deck choices you're making. And yeah, anyone can do it. It's incredible.
Yep, that's awesome. What I learned this week is I had the soul read on Wyatt. We were watching Top 8, me and Caroline, and we were like, we want Darby to win. I'm not kidding. I'm not buttering up. We honestly were like, if Owen can't win, it's got to be Darby. So when you two got paired, I was like, all right, whoever wins this is who we want to win. You won it. I'm like, I like this guy. He's awesome. Heard you come on the podcast. It's good to see you're actually a good person as well. None of that, not like Michael Hinderocker. He'll just throw shade at your decks and you're off camera.
Yeah, don't ask my friends for their opinion of me. I want to keep this good image intact for at least a few more weeks.
I like that. Yeah, definitely. Well, if you don't get the Tramp Stamp of Glory be at Vegas this weekend, I might have to change my opinion. But you seem like a person of your word, so I'm going to trust you, Wyatt. That's what I learned. You can trust the Darby father. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Enjoy GP Vegas. If you see us there, feel free to come up to us. Spencer loves it. I love it. Michael loves it. Matt, he probably says he loves it, but we know the truth. Wyatt definitely does. We'll see y'all next week.